They cost $5 a piece, or one laugh at one of my jokes. Y'all just learned your free life jacket. Now, if we do happen to capsize tonight, like the Titanic, we do have a plan of action. That plan of action is to just walk out into Lady Bird Lake and walk to shore, as his body feet deep in this part of the river. So you can't just walk out and walk to shore. Now to get to know y'all a little bit, and for y'all to get to know me, yes, I do have a mullet, and yes, I am originally from the city of Austin. I have been here for the last 28 years. It's on board tonight? Wonderful, I usually don't, so welcome aboard. But with all that being said, where's everybody else visiting from tonight? Don't be shy.
Fort Worth.
Australia, Dallas. Fort Worth.
Dallas.
Iowa, how about that?
Dallas.
Hong Kong, yeah.
India.
Wyoming.
Sweden.
Sweden, how about that?
India.
India, wow, wow, what an international group. Usually I don't have anybody, it's usually just people from the States. But welcome to Austin, everybody, if no one has welcomed you yet. So I do have one very important question to ask everybody. That is the other name we like to call it, but we call it one other name. It's the original name for this body. Yes, Town Lake! Wonderful, y'all. You got all three names. But Town Lake, when it was in the early 1970s, was very polluted, and it was the eyesore of Austin. So the mayor of Austin wanted to change that, so he would ask the former First Lady of the United States, Lady Bird Johnson, to head up a beautification project that would turn Town Lake from the eyesore of Austin to this beautiful green space that you see today. Now, every tree that you see on the shores of Town Lake was planted by Lady Bird Johnson during that beautification project. And she had two conditions for undertaking this beautification project. Condition number one was the hike and bike trail that surrounds Lady Bird Lake, that starts right over here at this gazebo, would be ADA accessible at all entries and exits. And we are happy to announce that the Roy Butler hike and bike trail is ADA accessible at all entries and exits. Now the Roy Butler hike and bike trail is a 10-mile hike and bike trail that goes all the way down to the Mopac Expressway, where we'll loop back around towards downtown Austin, where we'll go back to the Congress Avenue Street Bridge, and loop back around to the gazebo, and it will make about a 10-mile loop. Now the second condition that Lady Bird Johnson had for undertaking this beautification project was that we would not name this body of water after her over her dead body. And that's exactly what we would do. That's just 10 days after her death in 2007. We would officially change the name of this body of water from Town Lake to Lady Bird Lake, officially meeting her second condition of naming it over her dead body. Now folks, Austin is home to a number of park systems and green spaces. Lady Bird Lake is one of those 220 park systems and green spaces. But over here at our left, you will see one of the other ones. This is Auditorium Shores. Auditorium Shores is where Austin hosts a number of events, including the South by Southwest free shows, the Austin Food and Wine Festival, and a reggae festival that happens every 420 that no one ever seems to remember. But Auditorium Shores is also home to the first music festival here in Austin, Aquafest. Aquafest would happen from 1978 to 1992. And Aquafest was a giant celebration of live music and water sports. So they would have water skiing and speedboat racing out here on Lady Bird Lake, while live music was playing out on Auditorium Shores. Unfortunately, Aquafest would shutter in 1992 due to funding issues. But it would help establish the festival culture we have here in Austin, and Austin is home to one of the biggest music festivals in the entire United States, ACL, which happens at our most famous park, Silver Park, every October, for every first and second weekend of October. Now folks, if you look over to the right hand side or the North Shore, you will see a giant IKEA soap dish at our 3 o'clock. That giant IKEA soap dish is the pool to the North Shore apartment homes, which is the staircase looking building that you see just to the left of that very famous logo. Now the North Shore apartment homes are some of the most expensive apartment homes that we have here in Austin. They go for about $6,000 a month, but they do give you a great view of Lady Bird Lake at sunset and sunrise, so some say it is definitely worth it. Now folks, directly above that giant IKEA soap dish, there is a very famous logo. Does anyone want to take a guess at what that very famous logo is?
Google.
Exactly right, it is Amazon. And folks, the jokes aren't going to get any better tonight, so you better start laughing. But yes, that is Google. And when Google came to Austin in 2012, they would promise us two things. They would promise us a number of tech jobs and blazing fast internet. However, they have not delivered on either of those promises to me, as I am still waiting on Google Fiber to reach my neighborhood and for my term letter from Google, which I don't see either of those happening in my near future. But Google would come to Austin in 2012, and when they came to Austin in 2012, they would occupy the top 2 floors of this building, and then they would move to the top 5 floors, and then the top 10 floors. And after they moved to the top 10 floors of this building, they would approach their landlords, Deloitte Consulting Company, and would ask them if they could buy the building. Now, I don't know if you know anything about Deloitte Consulting Company, but they're a business that charges other businesses a bunch of money for advice that you can get from your local grocery store cashier. And they would mold their decision on whether or not to sell this building to Google for about 4 days. On the 4th and final day, they would come back to Google and they would tell them no. And does anyone know what happens when you tell Google no? Well, they become very petty and they build an even bigger building directly across the street from their original building. So do you know what the executives at Deloitte Consulting Company have to do now if they want to see the sunset here in Austin? They have to Google it. Because Google would build this giant sailboat that you see directly across the street from their building with their logo on it. And this building is called Block 180. Now, Block 180 was originally a City of Austin project. However, the City of Austin was going to ran out of money when they were constructing this building. So Google would step in and say, we're going to finish construction and move in. And that's exactly what they didn't do, as this building is still currently unoccupied, and the only operational part of Block 180 is the bottom 10 floors, or the parking garage. Now coming into view is a building that looks like a family board game that you might play on a Friday night. Does anyone want to take a guess on what that family board game is? Exactly right, it is Jenga. And does anyone? And that is exactly what we call this building, the Jenga Tower. However, the developers of this building don't really like us to call it the Jenga Tower. Does anyone know why? Because a Jenga tower falls over, exactly right. And that's exactly what this building did during the 3D simulations that they ran before they started construction. So to fix that problem, they would put that giant crown that you see on top of the Jenga tower. That giant crown, inside of it, has a 50,000 gallon water tank, which helps stabilizes the building during the high winds here in Austin. Now this building is actually called the Independent. The Independent was the tallest building in Austin for a little while. It stands 52 stories tall. And on the bottom 2 stories, they have a bar called the Codependent. The bar is not very good, as the bartenders are kind of dicks, and their drinks are very expensive. However, we just can't stop ourselves from going back. Now, folks, do y'all see the piece that looks like it's being removed from the Jenga tower? Well, that piece is actually an indoor yoga studio and dog park. That way, Austin's dogs, bougiest dogs, can do downward doggy with their owners 30 stories above the Austin skyline. Now, folks, the next building I want to point out to you is this rustic-looking building that you see at our 3 o'clock. That rustic-looking building there has the most stories in the entire city of Austin. Does anyone want to take a guess at what that building is? It is the Austin Public Library, exactly right. Get it? Most stories in the entire city of Austin. And it's this brown-colored looking building that you see at our 3 o'clock, just above the tree line. The Austin Public Library stands 7 stories tall. On the 7th and final story of the Austin Public Library, they have a barbecue joint and wine bar. So if you want to have wine and barbecue while you're doing book club here in Austin, you're more than welcome to on the 7th story of the Austin Public Library while you're watching the sunset or sunrise. Now, the Austin Public Library is also one of the crown jewels we have here in Austin, as it is one of the most energy efficient buildings in the entire United States. And they do host a green energy conference here every April. Now, folks, directly in front of us at our 12 o'clock, you will see a gray-looking building. That gray building was a part of the original power plant here in Austin, called the Seahome Power Plant. However, we would shut down the power plant in 1989, and this building has not been in use ever since. However, the city of Austin refuses to tear it down, as it is one of the only Art Deco buildings we have here in the entire city of Austin. And the city council is said to have plans to renovate this building and make it into an event space, but I don't really see that happening anytime soon, as city council is very lazy and I don't see them getting off their ass. Now folks, the Sea Home Power Plant has been transformed though and renovated into something that makes our Californians feel more at home. We have transformed our original power plant, the Sea Home Power Plant, into a Trader Joe's, so that our Californians feel way more at home here in Austin. Now folks, directly in front of us, if you're staring at the sun, you will see 3 bridges. Those 3 bridges are part of the Austin Bridge system. Directly in front of us, you will see the Mopac Railroad Bridge. The Mopac Railroad Bridge was the first bridge we built here in Austin. It was built in 1880. And it is still fully operational today and used by Amtrak and Union Pacific. Now behind the Mopac Railroad Bridge, we have the Lamar Street Bridge and the Pfluger Pedestrian Bridge. The Lamar Street Bridge is 150 feet wide with 4 lanes of traffic crossing. So to fix that problem, the city of Austin in 2002 would open the Pfluger Pedestrian Bridge so pedestrians can cross from South Austin to downtown safely. Now folks, if you look over at our left, you will see some steps. Those steps are for our dogs to hop in and out of Lady Bird Lake at will. We do love them a whole lot here in Austin and want them to enjoy the many amenities us humans get to enjoy. So in order for them to do that, we would build in these steps, as Auditorium Shores is one of the only off-leash dog parks we have here in the entire city of Austin. And we would build them these steps so they don't tear up the shore of the lake. To the left of the Google building is where the original settlement of Austin was settled. That settlement was called Waterloo, which is why you see Waterloo branding all over the city of Austin, including Waterloo Records, the Waterloo Theater, and those Waterloo seltzers that we sell at the dock. Now, the settlement of Waterloo would be established in 1836 during the Texas Revolution by Edward Burleson. Edward Burleson would settle on the shores of Shoal Creek, and he would have a thriving settlement for the next 3 years. In 1839, the second president of the Republic of Texas, Marabou Lamar, would visit the settlement of Waterloo, and he would like its central location in the fact that it was next to a big body of water, the Colorado River, and he would establish it as his new capital of Texas. And he would change the name officially from Waterloo to the city of Austin. Now, over the next 3 years, the Republic of Texas would have its own little civil war over what the capital of Texas would be. This period is called the Texas Archive War. And the Texas Archive War was fought between the cities of Austin and the city of Houston. The Texas Archive War would come to an end in 1842 when a local innkeeper here in Austin named Angelina Eberly would shoot off the town cannon at Sam Houston's army one night in February of 1842 when Sam Houston's army was attempting to steal the Constitution from the Texas Archive building. Now, thanks to Angelina's bravery, the city of Austin will remain the capital of Texas for the remainder of our history. And Angelina actually does have a statue here in Austin. Her statue is located on 6th and Congress. Now, folks, the next building I want to point out to you is that giant jewel or flash drive that you see in the middle of the city of Austin. That giant jewel or flash drive is the Austonian. The Austonian was the tallest building here in Austin for about a decade until they opened the Independent. The Austonian stands 54 stories tall compared to the Independent's 56. The Austonian is also the most expensive condominium complex we have here in Austin. Every condominium inside the Austonian goes for about $1 million a piece, and the top 4 floors, which is the top of the flash drive, are all penthouses, and those penthouses all go for about $8 million a piece, and they are all still currently empty. Now, the Austonian is also the rumored part-time home to the world's richest man, Elon Musk. Now, the Austonian, the original design for it was supposed to be a cowboy hat, but when they were designing the cowboy hat, the skywalk, or the catwalk across the top of the building was actually going to fall and break and fall to the ground and hurt a lot of people. So they scrapped that plan and instead made this giant flash drive, which is kind of fitting for the city of Austin, as we are often called Silicon Hills instead of Silicon Valley, because we do have a number of tech companies here in Austin today. Now folks, if you look over at our 3 o'clock, over on our right hand side, you will, coming into view, you will see a statue. That statue is of a very famous Austin artist called Stevie Ray Vaughan. Stevie Ray Vaughan was not born here in Austin, however he would come here at the ripe old age of 17. And when Stevie came to Austin, he would join the Antone's House Band, and he would start his own band called Double Trouble. And Double Trouble would record a number of blue rock albums here in Austin and win a number of Grammy Awards. Now, unfortunately, Stevie Ray Vaughan would pass away in 1991, leaving a Wisconsin music festival when he would pass in a helicopter crash. And when they hosted his funeral about a week later up in Dallas, over 4,000 Austinites would make the 4-hour drive up to Dallas in celebration of Stevie's life. And his family would be so touched by that kind gesture that they would put his memorial statue right here on Auditorium Shores so that he could continue to rock out at his favorite music venue for the rest of eternity. Now folks, there is another famous Austin artist that has a statue here. That famous artist is famous for 2 things, songwriting and smoking weed. Does anyone want to take a guess at who he is?
Willie Nelson.
Exactly right, Willie Nelson. And Willie Nelson has his statue outside the W Hotel, which is this Tetris looking building that you see just behind Silicon Labs. The W Hotel is not that important to us here in Austin, but this one does house the ACL Live movie theater on its bottom 2 stories. No, and that is where Willie Nelson's statue is, outside the ACL Live movie theater. And when us Austinites would unveil his statue on 4/20/2012 at 4:20 p.m., Willie Nelson would hop off his tour bus and would sing one of my favorite Willie Nelson songs, "Roll Me Up and Smoke Me When I Die." Now Willie Nelson would not start his music career here in Austin. He would actually start his music career up in Nashville. However, he would not find much success in Nashville, but he would make a number of friends, including Waylon Jennings, Johnny Cash, and Chris Christopherson. And he would invite those 3 gentlemen back to Austin with him to make music at his ranch. And those 4 gentlemen would start what is known as outlaw country music. Now, outlaw country music is a subgenre of country music, and Willie Nelson is famously quoted for saying outlaw country music would not be born if it were not for the city of Austin, as it was the only place in all of America where the hippies and the hicks got along. And that is still true today, as the hippies and the hicks are still getting along swimmingly here in Austin. Now folks, the next building I have to point out to you is that brown looking building that you see in between Silicon Labs Building 1 and 2, with the solar panel on its front. That building that you see there is Austin City Hall. Austin City Hall is designed to look like an armadillo. However, you don't really see the armadillo unless you are looking at it from the top view or from Google Earth. But the funny thing about Austin City Hall is that the architect for this building would put the exit for Austin City Hall at the rear of the armadillo, underneath the tail, so every day at 5:30 p.m. when the politicians are leaving Austin City Hall, they will all be pooped out of the armadillo. Now folks, there is another animal in the Austin skyline that is kind of poking its beak out at us and staring at us with its 2 eyes. Do you all see that animal with its feathers up in the air? Anyone want to take a guess at what that animal is? Who? Who? Yes, I think I heard it. That is an owl. And that building is the Frostbank Tower. The Frostbank Tower was the first blue glass skyscraper we had here in Austin. It stands 37 stories tall and is located directly on 3rd and Congress. The Frostbank Tower was also one of the first skyscrapers to be opened after the 9/11 tragedy. And the funny thing about the Frostbank Tower is the reason why it looks like an owl is because the lead architect for this building, when he was applying to college, he would apply to the University of Texas at Austin. However, he would be rejected from that architecture school, so he would have to go to another famous school here in Texas, often called the Harvard of the Southwest, down in Houston. Does anyone know what university I am talking about?
Rice.
Yes, Rice University. And does anyone want to take a wild guess on what Rice University's mascot is?
Owl.
That's right, it is an owl. So when that architect got the chance to put an owl 10 blocks from UT's campus, he would take a shot and he would not miss. And he would piss off the regents at UT so much that they would threaten to put horns on this building and paint it burnt orange. However, their minds would be put at ease when a local columnist here in Austin named John Kelso would say that this building is nothing more than the Phillips Norelco nose hair trimmer building. And I will say it does look like the nose hair trimmer I had at home. Now folks, directly in front of us you will see one of the other bridges we have here in Austin. This bridge is called the South First Street Bridge. The South First Street Bridge is not the world famous bat bridge here in Austin, as it is made out of metal and it is not very conductive to bat living, as it is quite hollow. But this bridge is also famous for another reason. It is called the Frustration Bridge here in Austin, and it is tradition when you cross under the South First Street Bridge to let out your frustration with the world. So if you want to let out your anger on the count of 3, you're more than welcome to. While we are crossing under the bridge. 1, 2, 3. Oh, I was angry. I stopped rolling it too. I love that. It's better for my ears anyway. But this bridge is also called the Drake Street Bridge. The Drake Street Bridge is not named after the recording artist from Toronto. It is named after former mayor of Austin, William Drake, who is the mayor of Austin at the time of this bridge's construction in 1950. Now, folks, directly in front of us is the smallest building I have to point out to you. This building that you see directly at our 12 o'clock is the Buford Memorial Bell Tower, just above the tree line. The Buford Memorial Bell Tower was the original fire training facility here in Austin. It was constructed in 1920 for the purpose of educating our firefighters on how to fight high-rise fires. And if you could believe, high-rises were just 6 stories tall way back in 1920. Now, the Buford Memorial Bell Tower would change its name in 1974 after the Great Flood that affected downtown Austin. During that flood, there was a famous fire captain that would save 8 children, Captain James Buford. Unfortunately, Captain James Buford would lose his life saving those 8 children during that flood. So the city of Austin would memorialize him by renaming the original fire training facility to the Buford Memorial Bell Tower. Now, ironically, the Buford Memorial Bell Tower would catch fire in 2021. Someone would set a trash fire on the top floor of the Buford Memorial Bell Tower, and it would take our firefighters about 5 minutes to put out that trash fire. Now, when they put out that trash fire, our firefighters would discover a sinister secret that the city of Austin had been hiding from us. There's actually no bells inside the Buford Memorial Bell Tower. There's just 2 very loud speakers that play a bell sound at 4:30 and midnight every night from Spotify. So if you're around the Buford Memorial Bell Tower around 4:30 or midnight while you're here, those are not bells you're hearing. Well, they are, but it's not actual bells. You're hearing it from Spotify. Now, folks, the next 3 buildings I have to point out to you are these 3 tan-colored looking buildings that you see at our, as we are turning around, or as we turn, they are going to be at our 9, 10, and 11 o'clock. Now, from left to right, these buildings are 1100 Congress Avenue, the Congress Plaza building, and then San Jacinto Tower. Now, these buildings also have fun names. The 1100 Congress Avenue building is called, it's also called the Crayola building, because when they light it up at night, it will look like a box of aqua-colored Crayolas. Now, the Congress Plaza building is called the Kubert building, because it does look like the 1980s game of Kubert. Now, we do call the San Jacinto building the Illuminati building because it does, because of that giant triangle on top of it, and because when you enter San Jacinto Tower, you don't come out for 4 days, and it is also the rumored home to the Texas Lottery Commission, which I do not believe because no one has ever won the Texas Lottery. Now these buildings are all 22 stories tall, and they are all office buildings, and they did make up the original skyline here in Austin in 1985. Now folks, the next building I have to point out to you is the Line Hotel. Before the Line bought this building, it was a very dingy building, and it was called a Rat Inn, and it had a TGI Fridays on its bottom story. But the Line Hotel would buy this building in 2019 and would dump over $50 million into it to make it something nice. And they would partner with a very famous street artist to paint this mural that you see on the side of it. Does anyone know the street artist by the name of Banksy? Well, he did not do this. It was done by another street artist by the name of Shepard Fairey. Shepard Fairey is famous for doing the Obama Hope poster in 2008 and for his Obey clothing line. Now, Shepard Fairey would come to Austin in 2020 and would paint this mural in celebration of the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, which would give women the right to vote here in America. Now, Shepard Fairey would depict Wonder Woman breaking the chains of bondage, as Wonder Woman was the first feminine superhero to be depicted in a DC comic in 1941. And he would paint the 3 races of women under her, with a vote bandage across her nose, as this was done during the 2020 election cycle. Now, if you look directly to the left of Wonder Woman, on the far left-hand side of the building, you'll see Andre the Giant. Now, Shepard Fairey doesn't often sign his murals, but he did sign this one, and his artist signature is Andre the Giant. So I think it is kind of cool that you can see Andre the Giant and Wonder Woman in the same painting. Now folks, we have reached the famous Bat Bridge here in Austin, also called the Congress Avenue Street Bridge, or the Ann Richards Memorial Street Bridge. The Congress Avenue Street Bridge was constructed in 1910, and it has undergone 3 renovation projects since then. The last one happened in 1980, and about 3 days after they finished that renovation project in 1980 is when these bats would move into the Congress Avenue Street Bridge. These bats live in the expansion gaps that you see underneath. These expansion gaps are about 2 inches wide and about 18 inches deep. So these bats are very tightly packed in there, and you can fit about 200 of these bats in 1 square foot underneath the Congress Avenue Street Bridge. And to give you some perspective about what 1 square foot looks like, that is about the size of your t-shirt. Now folks, I'm going to be quiet for a second so y'all can hear what is called colony chatter. Colony chatter for my gentlemen on board is basically your wife or girlfriend getting ready with the girls and then discussing what they're going to do for the evening. Alrighty guys, so we're going to come back to the bridge in about 10 minutes. We did track every night when these bats come out. They came out at about 8:46 last night, so we will be sure to be back before then. But as we continue, the next part of the tour I want to point out to you is this giant district that you see directly in front of us. This giant district that you see here is Rainy Street. Rainy Street is a historic district here in Austin. Back in 2005, this district was nothing but bungalow-style houses, and they had about 300 bungalow-style houses lining the streets of Rainy. However, in 2005, they would redistrict Rainy into a bar and restaurant district, and they would make it, and they would renovate those bungalow-style homes into bars and restaurants. However, in 2015 is when is when the real developers started to move into Rainy Street and started building all of these high rises and condos that you see lining the streets of Rainy today. And from right to left, we're going to start with 44th East Avenue, which is this tall, big blue building that you see on the far right-hand side. It goes condo, 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 hotel, condo, 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 hotel, condo, hotel. And that is Rainy Street. And when Rainy Street is all said and done in 2030, it will be one of the most densely populated areas in the entire United States, as there's going to be about 50,000 people living on 2 city blocks, which is possibly denser than the entire island of Manhattan. Now, folks, Rainy Street is also going to be the home to the tallest building in the western United States, the Water Line, which is this giant blue-green building that you see directly in front of us. Now, the Water Line is going to stand 76 stories tall and be 1,020 feet in the air. Now, the Water Line is going to be a multi-purpose building. It is going to have hotel and restaurants on the bottom stories, which is the brown part that you see directly in front of the water above the tree line. And then it's going to be offices and office space in the second part. And then they are going to have condos on the top part, which they are currently constructing. Now, the Water Line, the top 2 floors, which will be penthouses, have already been purchased by the world's richest man, Elon Musk, if you were in the market for a penthouse. Now, dang. Now, the Water Line stands exactly 1 story taller than the building in Houston, which stands 75 stories. And I think that is all I have to say about the Water Line. They're probably close to the Austonian's penthouses, probably like 8 to 10 mil, somewhere around there. But if you look directly behind the Water Line, you're going to see the Fairmont Hotel. The Fairmont was the tallest building here in Austin for a little while. It does not have the most stories. It only stands about 42 stories tall. But the reason why it was the tallest building here in Austin was because of that 250-foot radio tower that you see on top of it. Now, that 250-foot radio tower would make the Fairmont the tallest building here in Austin, but it would also earn it the reputation of the 7-Eleven slushy building, as it does look like a giant straw coming out of the blue slushy. But the Fairmont is the nicest hotel we have here in Austin. During South by Southwest and ACL, a common room at the Fairmont could run you $1,500 to $2,000 in for a night. Now, folks, Rainy Street is famous for one last reason. And that reason is because it is home to the newest serial killer here in Austin. That serial killer is named the Rainy Street Ripper. The Rainy Street Ripper has been terrorizing the city of Austin since 2020. And the way that she finds her victims is that she usually finds a guy or a group of guys between the ages of 25 and 35 that are here celebrating anything from frat reunions to bachelor parties, and then she will seduce them, lure them back to the Roy Butler hike and bike trail after she has drugged them, and then she will shove them into the river. And so it does kind of make for the perfect crime. But you may have noticed that I said she, and that is because I believe the Rainy Street Ripper is a woman, because like I said, most of her victims are males between the ages of 25 to 35 that are not from Austin and are visiting for a special occasion. But, so gentlemen, if you go out to Rainy Street tonight, I suggest not trusting any ladies giving you free drinks, as they might be trying to kill you. But folks, we are going to start turning around, and as we do, but before we do that, let me point out Austin Rowing Club. Austin Rowing Club is where you can rent out these kayaks and these fancy little vintage boats that you see out on the water. Austin Rowing Club is also home to the Ivy League's rowing teams during the winter months. As Austin is one of the best rowing cities in the entire world, thanks to Lady Bird Lake, as it does not freeze over during the winter months. So Yale, Harvard, Cornell, and Princeton all house their rowing teams here in Austin during those winter months. And the University of Texas is the current national champion in rowing. But folks, we have reached what we like to call our Kodak moment for the tour. or selfie spot, Instagram moment, or whatever you want to call it. So if you want to take some wonderful pictures of downtown Austin or Rainy Street, you are more than welcome to at this time. I'm going to hop off for a few minutes, or a few moments, so that y'all can enjoy the view.